Well, that wasn't as good as I expected the segue to be, but ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you live to episode number 33 of the Primetime Rundown, powered by StreamYard, right here on the Eastern Observer and the Blackjack Media Networks on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network on Zingo Channel 198. We cannot thank you enough for joining myself, Joey Jarzynka, Assistant Director of Athletic Communications at Adelphi University, Ian Schraier, and my good friend, Rob DeLuca, Pucks and Pitchforks, as he covers the New Jersey Devils. Guys, how the hell are you? It's been a long 2 weeks since we've spoken about hockey. We've spoken about football, basketball, baseball, every little thing. But I have to just do one thing here. We did it off camera. And even though it's done, even though the run is over, we have to say that it was a fun ride because Ian and Rob have gotten to see not only a Stanley Cup final, but they've also gotten to see numerous Eastern Conference finals. And they've gotten to see either their team win, their team unfortunately fall. But I can now finally say, and I can join the group of viewers and fans out there that have witnessed a cup final or a conference final, excuse me. Haven't seen a cup final yet, but conference final. So I'm beyond grateful to be in that conversation. Fellas, so how are we? I'm sorry I interrupted.
We're doing well here, Joey. Great to see Rob on here again with us, and looking forward to talking a couple hours of good sports with you guys. It's been a great hockey playoffs, getting down to the nitty-gritty here in the final couple of weeks of baseball season, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's always good to be with you guys. Great show, and you know we're gonna have a lot of fun these next 2 hours because the one benefit of the only benefit of this whole pandemic situation is that we have gotten the glorious benefit of all four sports at one time.
Yeah. You know, it's very funny because I think, what was it, last week we got to see, or last Thursday, was the first time, I think, in history, in sports history, or in American sports history, rather, where we were able to see the NFL, MLB, NHL, and the NBA all at once. And that was probably the coolest thing to be able to see. And Rob DeLuca knows the man cave that I have down here. I did not get a chance to do some viewing that Thursday night down here because it was such a nice evening. So I had to, be outside and watch out there. But folks, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, we do have a little bit of a new background. It's the same colors, it's the same everything, but we added a couple of little touches here. So this show here is presented to you by Black Cats NYC. Who are they? That is Andrew Giordano, who is the leader of the Black Cats NYC music group. Please take a peek at their newest hit single, Dirty Little Hipster. That is what you heard just before we got things started. Black Cats NYC, Dirty Little Hipster, newest single, is available now on Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube, Pandora, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Deezer as well. So please definitely take a peek at them. And yeah, definitely I would say get the song because it's pretty good. And on top of it too, it is our opening song. So you could just think of our gorgeous faces coming on right after you're done listening to the song. That is pretty good stuff. And I see I didn't get Rob DeLuca's reaction out of that, but I see the pandemic has taken a toll on him on that front. Fellas, let's get into this because the amount of sports and the amount of topics that we've missed out on in the last couple of weeks is monumental already. We look now at, we're going to start off with Major League Baseball, and the reason why I want to do that is because Ian Schraier is a diehard Mets fan and a lifelong Mets fan. And let's just say that you now have the richest owner in all of Major League Baseball. How cool is that, Ian? Congratulations.
It's not official yet. It's not official yet. The owners from Major League Baseball still have to approve it, which is expected to be in November at their next owners meeting, which now I'm hearing might get pushed up sooner because in the wake of the pandemic, it might actually get moved to a virtual conference call or whatever they're going to do. So they might approve Cohen sooner rather than later. There's nothing to validate the fact that they won't approve him. A lot has been said that because of the relationship that the Wilpons have had with the league office now for the better part of 30 years, that if he wasn't going to get approved, they never would have put pen to paper in terms of agreeing on the price that the Wilpons were selling the team to Steve Cohen. So, yeah, like you said, Joey, to reiterate what you were saying, he would become the richest owner in all of Major League Baseball, approximately $14 billion. He's a local kid from Great Neck, Long Island, so that's always good to see a Long Island kid do well. And, you know, what's nice is I know the Mets have continually always had a top 5, top 10 payroll in all of Major League Baseball every year. What's going to be nice is based on how much money this man has, it's going to be nice to be no longer shopping off the clearance racks and to have an owner that really is going to put himself in the middle with all those top-tier free agents, something that Mets fans aren't normally used to seeing.
Right. And you know what? Right before we get to Rob, I want to say this, and I did see that there were a couple of conversations that you did have on Twitter, Ian, with a few people, some of which that we know on this show. But there was some banter back and forth here that, you know, the Mets don't spend, the Mets do spend. You can't really blame the ownership. Well, I have to say this here is that you 100% can blame the ownership, because exactly what you said, Ian, and you said it perfectly. You're getting stuff, you're getting these guys literally off the clearance rack, and you can't attract free agents. So now you have to figure something out, and it's not working, and it hasn't worked. And 2015, in my opinion, was an absolute fluke. It really was, because look, all of a sudden now you have someone who is a local kid. Not only that, he apparently and correct me if I'm wrong here, this is what I saw through the grapevine, that Steve Cohen is a Mets fan.
Yes.
Which is the coolest thing, because that, in my opinion, and Rob can say amen to this, that is the American dream right there, fellas. Because you know what? You are able to buy your favorite sports team. You are able to buy your favorite sports team. You're not buying memorabilia. You're literally buying the franchise. And you've worked so hard to do this. And I don't know, because we really haven't heard from him publicly yet on, you know, we haven't heard those words. But I think to myself, and I say, you know, you've made so much money, $14 billion this hedge fund, this hedge funder is worth. I don't know the correct terminology there.
Yeah, he's a hedge fund manager. That's correct.
Hedge fund manager. That's it. Exactly. So hedge funder, hedge fund manager. He's worth $14 billion. He is now, or will be when he gets approved, he will overtake Washington Nationals owner and the group of Lerner Sports, Ted Lerner, who is currently sitting at the top of the leaderboard at $4.8 billion. He is the one that owns the Nationals. And this is all courtesy of Forbes, by the way. Number 3 there is Charles Johnson, San Francisco Giants, $4.5 billion. The Ilitch family, of course, that own the Detroit Red Wings, the Detroit Tigers, also Little Caesars Pizzeria as well. They are the founders of Little Caesars at $3.8 billion. The list goes on. And the Steinbrenners actually are not even on that list, but that's another topic for another day. Again, like I said, it is the American dream. You literally are buying your own team. I think kudos to him. And exactly what you said, Ian, we are now going to see, this is not going to be a shift that is, it might be rough a little bit, because you're going to have to clear house. The culture needs to change, and he's going to put in his own culture. And I'm assuming, as a diehard Mets fan, that he is as well. And something I could say that you could probably attest to is that the culture needs to change. The clubhouse needs to change from top to bottom. And the Jeff Wilpons of the world, they're no longer going to be there. They most likely are going to be owning, I think, about 5% of what it is, or I think because Cohen bought 95%, so the other 5 is going to remain between the Cats and Wilpon families.
That's correct. But one thing I want to jump back to with regards to what you said about 2015, I don't really want to call it a fluke, because at the time, what was really built off that team and those successful teams in 2015 and 2016 was the fact that maybe they weren't going to score a lot of runs, but they were anticipating the fact that pitching wins championships, and we're going to go off one of the strongest rotations in baseball, or what we hoped was going to be one of the strongest rotations in baseball to lead the Mets to a championship. Remember, at the time, you had the big four. You had Matt Harvey, who before Jacob deGrom was the number one. Yep. Then you had deGrom, Syndergaard, which actually was the big five, Wheeler, and Matz. So they were hoping that they were going to have 10 to 15 game winners, if not a 20 game winner in that rotation. And just those five guys alone were going to lead them to a divisional championship. Obviously, Harvey had Tommy John surgery. Syndergaard's now had Tommy John. Same with Wheeler. Matz has torn his rotator cuff. The only guy who's seemed to stay healthy, even though he's had Tommy John, has been Jacob deGrom.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't so much call it a fluke. They went out, they got Cespedes at the 2015 deadline. They were talented, and they had the pitching, and they had the starting pitching, and they had the bullpen to get there. But what happened now is the fact Harvey obviously was never the same pitcher after 2015.
Yeah.
I guess Zach Wheeler has refound his game to a certain degree in Philadelphia. They're still waiting on the Steven Matz that they saw from 5 years ago. His shoulder still has never recovered. So, yes, there needs to be a change. A lot of the discussion that I had on Twitter that you were alluding to, Joey, was the fact that Mets fans no longer have an excuse for the fact that they don't have an owner that doesn't have the money to spend. The Wilpons are giving the team or selling the team to Steve Cohen with over $100 million in debt. That's something I didn't know until just recently, that they were over $100 million in the hole. So it's understandable to a certain degree why the Wilpons didn't spend money. Remember in the 2006 offseason, they went out, they got Carlos Beltran, they went out, they signed Pedro Martinez, they went out and signed all these premier all-stars to make a run at a World Series. They had the money then. Then in the wake of the Madoff scandal, they lost all this money and somehow we're $100 million in the hole. So Mets fans now really don't have the excuse when you're now going to have the richest owner in baseball to say, well, now this owner has to sell the team. It's either win with this owner or who knows when they're going to win next.
Yeah, I do have to say, yeah, that is fair. That is fair. But right now, though, again, when you're spending money and you're spending it on a guy like, you know, obviously trying to get Edwin Diaz, you had to, you know, they had to take on Robinson Cano. It happens. And that 10-year, $200 million or $300 million or however much that contract was worth, Rob DeLuca, I got to ask you this. With Steve Cohen being the new or preliminary talks, which it's in writing right now.
Yeah,
Steve Cohen being the richest owner in baseball, do you agree with Ian there, or is there something that the Wilpons did right?
I mean, I'm not a Mets fan, so I can't really speak from a personal experience on how the Wilpons have just made Mets fans feel like garbage for the past X amount of years. Like, at some point, you got to say why, and just keep saying why, and essentially when will this nightmare end? And now Mets fans finally have a light at the end of this egregiously long tunnel. And I have to say, Joey, I might agree with you a little bit about 2015. It was like this team looked like they were primed and ready, especially after that run. Fell a little short against the Royals, but nevertheless, they seemed ready to go. And then just complete fallout and nothing ever since.
Well, that's why I don't want to say fluke. Maybe, well, I mean, it would be the same exact terminology, would just be flash in the pan, because, you know, unfortunately, exactly what Ian said, where Matt Harvey did have Tommy John surgery. He was never the same. And then also a lot of guys, I'm sorry, who did you have there? You had, I believe, Daniel Murphy was signed by Washington in a free agency deal. Mm-hmm. So, you know, at the time, they didn't want to retain those guys that were, I don't want to say didn't want to retain them, or let me rephrase that. It's not did not want to. It's maybe they couldn't afford it. They didn't want to, I would say. But
they could have retained Murphy, Joey. They could have retained Murphy. They extended him a qualifying offer. What you have to remember is a lot of Met fans really, despite the incredible postseason that he had in 2015, threw the book at him because of his lapses out in the field on defense.
Right.
That was really the key to it, was the fact that he was a defensive liability. Now, granted, they went out there and replaced him in-house with a guy like T.J. Rivera, who could never stay healthy. They were hoping that they would get a guy like Ahmed Rosario up there a year sooner. But even looking back in hindsight, hindsight's always 20/20. I mean, they should have retained Murphy. They extended the qualifying offer to him, which he really kind of said, I'm not going to accept this because I know I can get more on the market. And Washington gave him more, and that's where he went.
Yeah, it's definitely sad to say. But I personally do believe, and especially now, that things will be heading back in favor of the Mets. And not only that, too, guys. You know, with everything going on here, and also we have extended the invite also to a lot of Islanders fans. I do apologize, Ian and Rob, but a lot of the Islanders fans that do watch this show, they are Mets fans, so they do appreciate listening to this. I do believe personally that this is the biggest sale in MLB history, because on Monday, September 14th, just 5 days ago, which for some reason felt like an eternity ago, 95% of the Sterling Mets was bought for $2.4 billion to a Mr. Stephen Cohen. He now becomes the richest owner in Major League Baseball, pending approval of the other 29 Major League owners. Do not forget as well, we bring up, or I bring that part up with the Mets because as Rob said, the light is at the end of the tunnel. I just personally don't think that it's going to be similar to a transition like how it was for the Islanders, fairly smooth, where it was you're going to go to get a Barry Trotz like coach, and then also a general manager and president of operations, where you can completely turn or shift the culture. I don't know how that's going to work in baseball. Do you guys agree with that or potentially disagree? Because the amount of, I don't want to say a cancer in there, because listen, you have also as a special assistant, and who I don't think has ever left, Omar Minaya. Ian Schraier, how long ago was he your general manager?
Well, he's been involved in the system even before he was general manager. I don't know the exact history behind Manaya's involvement with the Mets, but I think they go back even back when Steve Phillips was the GM back in the early 2000s, followed by Jim Duquette, and then Omar Minaya became the general manager. But it really goes back to who Steve Cohen is going to have as his GM. Is he going to keep Brody Van Wagen in there, or is he going to look elsewhere? That's a question. Also, remember one thing. The Mets sale almost happened in January.
Yeah.
The issue was that Jeff Wilpon said, I wanted control of the team for 5 years, and I want your money to do it. So Steve Cohen said, I'm out. I'm not going to give you however many billions of dollars to buy your team, and then you're still going to make the decision to phase out after 5 years. And as a result, Steve Cohen was going to buy the Mets for $2.8 billion back in January. Jeff Wilpon actually cost his own father and uncle $375 million as a result of it.
Well, you see that, and you know what? And the crazy part is that, you know, Ian, you have a daughter. When you say, you know, you cost me some money, you cost me whatever. Let's hope it wasn't worth $375 million, what she may have cost you if she broke something or whatever the case may be.
If my daughter cost me $375 million, I'm not even sure she'd ever be able to leave her room ever again.
Oh, man. Yeah, listen, you know what? I mean, I can only imagine what Fred would say to Jeff. I don't know how you say that to your son, because that's really not a little boo-boo when you make a $375 million mistake. So again, he now becomes the richest owner. $14 billion is what he's worth. But also, we were talking about, as we shift gears here, guys, the MLB postseason is coming up in the next couple of weeks. This is big news here because let's not forget, we spoke about the bubbles. We spoke about what Jeff Passan spoke about on an interview with Barstool. He was the one that publicly came out with it. There was no traction from that point forward until Jeff Passan then reported it again. And it was then eventually the traction, it eventually stuck. Major League Baseball got a hold of it, as did Ken Rosenthal and the rest of the baseball media gurus, where the wild card will be a best of 3 at the home ballpark of the higher seed. And the divisional series, AL and NL, will be a best of 5, as always, The American League will be played. The ALDS will be played in San Diego, and the National League, the NLDS, will be played in Houston and Texas. I do apologize. I forgot that. The American League will be played in San Diego and the Chavez Ravine, Los Angeles Dodgers home ballpark at Dodger Stadium. And then the League Championship Series, AL and NLCS, the best of 7, as always. American League will be played in San Diego, while the National League will be played in Texas, in Arlington, their new ballpark. And the World Series, again, best of 7, will be played at a neutral site for the first time in Major League Baseball history. All games are to be played at Globe Life Park, the home of the Texas Rangers in Arlington, Texas. So, guys, now we finally have a bubble. Major League Baseball is we're starting to see a lot more negative cases, which is a good thing. We're not seeing as many positives. But what we're starting to see now is a little bit of stability in terms of games being played.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the right move by baseball, because just recently the San Francisco Giants had a small tiff with a positive COVID case, so they lost a series over the weekend, and they'll have to reschedule that within this time frame. And the time frame is getting real close here. It's becoming very close to whether or not every team will play 60 games or not, but that's a discussion for later. But yeah, I think the bubbles are a great idea, because you have to look at what happened over the season, and you can see the success of the NHL and the NBA bubbles. There is zero reason not to do this. The interesting part of it is that the AL is going to play in a National League ballpark, and the National League is going to play in an American League ballpark. So this will make for a very interesting playoff.
I don't think there's too much to add other than what Rob just said. Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I love the fact also it's being, with the exception of the wild card round, it's being contained to 2 different states. It's staying within Texas and California, so I think that's also great. We've seen it work throughout all of the professional organizations that have so far run with a bubble, like Rob said, the NBA, the National Hockey League. And I know Nick Partain, my soccer buddy, isn't here with me, but also Major League Soccer did it too. So we've seen it where it works, and it made all too much sense for baseball to follow suit.
Yeah, and you know what? You kind of have to, especially with the outbreak that happened in the beginning of the Major League Baseball season. Exactly what Rob said also with the or as we said earlier, the stability. But also you have the different dimension of playing now at the opposite league's ballpark. So now San Diego being extremely pitcher-friendly, let's say you have a team like the Yankees that go there, or you have a team like, let's see who else is in the hunt right now. There's Chicago, the White Sox, Tampa Bay, both who have clinched, by the way. Oakland, Minnesota, the Yankees, as aforementioned Yankees. Houston, Cleveland, and Toronto. That is your 1 through 8 thus far. And then on top of it, guys, exactly what the two of you said is that there now becomes a lot of thinking, a lot of work that has to be put in here to – you now have to what's the word that I'm looking for? Adapt to your new surroundings. And you're not playing at your home ballpark. And there are times when these American League teams have not played at a ballpark like San Diego, like Petco Park, or Dodger Stadium in years. So that's going to be a big challenge for these teams. And I think the coolest thing too, fellas, is that playing in the new ballpark, of the Texas Rangers, Globe Life Field or Park or whatever it's called, Globe Life something. It's a brand new ballpark, and only 4 teams have played in there. Only 4 other teams have played. Another 8 teams. I think it's 8 total teams, because you also have the NL West has also gone in there as well. So again, you're playing these, or you're going to this building. You have now American League Central, American League East, and the same goes with the National League. Whoever makes it there, guys, it's going to be definitely tough because they've never been there before. And I think that this is going to be one of the coolest World Series that we see. Honestly, I think in our lifetimes, because this is going to just be the battle of the unknown.
Yep, and the only thing that could really make it even more better and a little more hyped up if they can get a reduced capacity crowd in there, which is what they are hoping to do for, at the very bare minimum, the World Series. They want at least some sort of crowd in there. So one can only hope that it's actually going to happen. Yeah, and not only that too, we don't know how or what we've seen with Kansas City with the Chiefs with the NFL, but apparently one fan that was in there was found or was tested positive for COVID. So we don't know how that's going to have an impact around professional sports in the United States moving forward. But Ian, what do you think about playing at a neutral site for the first time in Major League Baseball history, and especially you as a diehard baseball fan? What are your thoughts on the analytics part of this and how this plays a big role in a neutral site, especially at a brand new ballpark that just opened 6 months ago?
It's going to be new for everybody. It's going to be new for both teams that are there. I mean, look, the Texas Rangers aren't making the World Series. They're not going to make the playoffs. It's going to be new. It's going to be a new adventure, I should say. It's going to be new land for everybody that involved with the playoff system. It's the first time we're going to 8 teams on both sides. I like it. I think that, ask the NBA players in Orlando, ask the NHL players in Edmonton and in Toronto how they've adapted to a new style, a new system, a new everything in the wake of COVID-19. I don't really have too much of an opinion on it. I just think teams are, like Rob said, are going to have to adapt.
Yeah, and on top of it too, fellas, we're talking about adapting. Now, this is something here that is, again, really different as well. There are no off days in between the division series and the league championship series. That's something else there. And there's also 2 off days in the World Series in between games 2 and 3 and games 5 and 6. And in between the wild card and divisional series, there's Saturday and Sunday off, obviously, because they have to travel. That's fair. But again, the divisional series and the LCS, there are no off days, and they go straight through. Guys, your thoughts on who potentially – I'm going to throw one out here, and I'm going to take one out of the hat here. And even though this was not a part of our prompt, I want to know your thoughts, and let's hear your knowledge, or your thoughts on who this could possibly affect the most going straight through or even benefit.
I got to say – I think if they get there, I mean, because they're technically not clinched yet, although it looks good. The New York Yankees have had 1 off day, and I believe the past 2 weeks, and they don't have an off day for the rest of the season. They have the month of September, I think, brought them 2 off days at most, and I could even be overselling it there. So they're used to playing for long stretches right now in a crazy season like this. But then again, at the same time, this is also baseball. So teams are, for hundreds of years, teams are used to playing every single day without a break. And even when they have to travel and stuff, there's not off days sometimes. So I don't know if there's any benefit per se or effect. The effect will come in after the wild card series when they do have to go travel, but they get the off day, which is very important. So it'll be interesting to see, but just in a little biased standpoint, I guess I would say the Yankees, who literally just haven't had any off days other than Monday in what feels like a month and a half, because they've had to make up all these games in such short amount of time. That's how you could reach something like that. Yeah, teams like the Cardinals as well, teams that have had so many games postponed and have now had to make them up and lose all of their days off that were set in on the calendar.
Ian Schraier.
That's a good question, and I think Rob answered it pretty well. I would say teams that also maybe have not been there before. That's it's something that's a little new for teams like, say, the San Diego Padres, the Chicago White Sox. These are teams that have not made the playoffs in the better part of a decade, if not more. The Miami Marlins is another one to loop in there. Teams that just don't have that playoff experience. There are certainly question marks on in both rotations. I mean, certainly the Clevenger move for San Diego is a big help to help improve that starting rotation. But these are teams that are, like Rob said, and you said, Joey, are not going to have any off days. So your rotation needs to be on point, even more than your offense. Because as we said, pitching wins it's in the World Series. It's in the playoffs where your pitching wins you championships. And teams like the White Sox and teams like the Padres and teams like the Marlins that have question marks surrounding their rotation and are still winning games right now need to go 5, 6, maybe even 7 days in a row.
Don't forget, too, fellas, just by looking at some of the rosters here, I personally believe that this will affect the following teams. I believe this is going to affect the New York Yankees. Why? Because right now you have a 1 through 4 that is a lock, I'd say. But clearly you're going to have to go with a 5-man rotation. This is something that we have not seen in the playoffs in a very long time. And for as long as I can remember, I know last year when the Washington Nationals won, it was Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, Patrick Corbin, Sean Doolittle, Tanner Rainey. But also, don't forget, you also had Daniel Hudson as well. So you had basically 6 guys that would just keep going. But you also had a couple of travel days where maybe you had a day off here and there. Now you have to go literally 5. You have to go almost 2 weeks straight with no off day. So
it isn't like college baseball either, Joey. You really can't run. You can't have a day in the MLB playoffs where you could really run like a Johnny Holstaff out there. It's not like you can have a day where you can run an opener out there that could pitch you 2 or 3 innings and then maybe throw your starters out there. Every game is just as vital as game 1 is in the playoffs, and you don't have that luxury.
Right, exactly. So not having that luxury to be able to rest these players, to be able to say, all right, well, it's going to be on 3 days rest, or it's going to be on 4 days rest, whatever. No, these guys are going to be on normal 5-day rest like it's the regular season. And again, looking back to what I was saying about the Yankees right now, guys, it's Garrett Cole, Tanaka, J.A. Happ, again, another problem, Jordan Montgomery, and Devi, I can't say it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now let's think about this. And Rob DeLuca knows a little bit more than I do lately. But other than those guys that I had mentioned, and again, you can't trust a guy like Garcia and potentially also Montgomery too, to be able to get you through a long playoff stretch. I don't know how that's going to work. And again, you only have 4 starters. You only have 4 starters. You did not make a move at the deadline. And now with this, seeing this is going to hurt the New York Yankees. This is also going to hurt them. Why? Because yesterday we saw 6 home runs. We saw 6 home runs. That is phenomenal. But guess what? Clearly the Bronx Bombers cannot hit other than home runs. Yes, they can here and there. They're getting Aaron Judge back. But if you don't have a big home run type game, it's over. It's over, and we cannot. And we don't know which Adam Ottavino we are going to get in the playoffs as well. We saw he completely shut down. He ran out of gas last year against the Astros. He didn't show up. He wasn't there. The Los Angeles Dodgers as well. You also have Walker Buehler as well, who's on the injured list. Dustin May has a little bit of an issue with his arm. He's not on the injured list yet. They were taking a look at him, making sure that he was good. I don't believe he missed a start, but clearly a lot of these top teams that are going for the World Series, like the Dodgers and the Yankees, I don't know, guys, how it could be, especially when they barely made any moves, that these 2 teams can come out and really do damage. I can see an unsung hero come out and be a winner here. I really can.
I mean, yeah, it's the playoffs, Playoffs, you can see just about anything happen. I'm pretty sure hockey proved that already, and basketball, no less. You've got the Denver Nuggets in the NBA in the Western Conference Finals over there. And you've got the Miami Heat on the East side. That's a 3 seed and a 5 seed, but it's a 3 seed that got past the Los Angeles Clippers, who were supposed to be the other super team with the Lakers. So, and game 1 is tonight, 9 o'clock on TNT for our viewers who are going to probably go watch that after we're done here. And then in hockey, you've got the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup final. This is a team who was written off when this bubble started. Like, they're going to clearly be the 4 seed, and they're going to get bounced once the first round starts. And I will say, I was certainly one of those people who faded them. Yep. I faded them every single round until the conference final. I'm like, you know what? They're still not going to win, but it's going to go 7 games, and Vegas is going to take them down. And then the Stars win the series in 6 games. Like
5, I think it was, right?
It was 5. It was 5. It was 5. Yeah, no, it was 5. 5 games. They dismantled the Vegas Golden Knights. So I think what that just says here about baseball is that, yes, an unsung hero really could pull this out here. You could see someone like Minnesota, who has a lot of power hitting this year, finally have their moment in the sun. The Chicago White Sox, for the first time in 12 years, are going back to the playoffs, and they might have their moment. You know, Joey, it's just like there's that one chance for that one shining moment.
You gotta, you gotta make sure you didn't steal something from CBS by saying one shining moment right there.
Oh, I hope that's not copyrighted.
You know what? Well, let's give Luther Vandross a call right now and see if he approves of that. But you know, I'd have to agree. There is that again. I look at these teams and you know, it's wild too. We see a 1 through 8. We don't see you know, we don't see your typical 4 teams making the playoffs each year, or you know, or on each side. So anyone could come out of it, and hell, it could be a 7 seed. It could be the Cincinnati Reds. It could be even the Houston Astros, who are at 25 and 25. It could be Toronto. It could be Cleveland, who just traded away their number 1. It could be St. Louis, who, by the way, their magic number is 13 games for a postseason berth. They are currently 2 games out of the final wild card spot. And again, I don't want to say that, and please do not hold me to that, because the way it is, again, is that Philadelphia has played a total of 49 games, while St. Louis has played a total of 46. So, again, I don't know how the math goes, okay? We do not have Nick Partain, our math guru here, who can be the one to tell us with, percentages. But what I do know is that just by looking here, they're about, I'd say, I think about 2 games out, or roughly. So we'll see what happens. And especially because they missed that whole week, or they didn't play for 2 weeks because of their little you know, casino trip, if you will. We'll call it trip. They and a whole bunch of the players got the coronavirus. Ian Schraier, your thoughts on the final last couple of weeks of the season, and what we could see or what to look for?
Well, I think the American League, for the most part, appears to be set. I think what it is Houston is 3 games up on Seattle for the number 2 spot in the West. Toronto's actually 4.5 games up for the final spot. The final wildcard spot, I should say, in the American League. So it seems like the AL, with the exception of maybe teams still jostling for position, seems to be set to go. It's funny how Rob brought up the NBA, because I'm going to make an analogy here. If you look at the bottom half of the National League postseason race, it kind of reminds you a little bit of the way the Eastern Conference looks every year when it comes to the NBA playoffs. You've got 6 under 500 teams battling right now for 2 wildcard spots. And right now, I believe Colorado is is the furthest team out from, I believe, what is it, Philly and San Francisco right now that occupy those last 2 spots. Yeah. Who's the furthest team out that can catch up at 3 games back with still 10 to play. And then if you look at the records of the Reds and the Marlins, there's no guarantees that they lock up the number 2 spots in their respective divisions. I mean, the Phillies are right now in the postseason discussion. I think they're a game and a half back. Scary to say, even the Mets are 2.5 games back. So the Cardinals, I mean, I know we spoke about this a few weeks ago about how I say the Cardinals always find a way to make the playoffs. It wouldn't shock me to see them be one of the final 8. They just have that experience of being there. So it's a wide open race right now. Like I said, I think the American League seems to be pretty set, but the National League is going to be real interesting this last week and a half.
Yeah, and also right now, just a little update. We usually do 6:31 and a 7:18 update. If you guys can figure out why we do that, then kudos to you. 631 is the area code out here on Long Island, and 718 is the area code out in New York City. So we kind of like to add that New York vibe here. Sorry, Rob. 201 is not really used, and we're not really.
201-973 not going to work here.
Well, Joey could also say 516, but we started at 6 o'clock.
Exactly right. Yes. Well, when we did our show from 5 to 7, way in the beginning, we actually did 5:16 and 6:31, and then all of a sudden, poof, we're off the air at that point. But little bit of an update here. Cardinals Pirates, the first game of 2 this evening. They currently lead. The Cardinals currently lead the Pirates 6-5 at the end of 6 full innings of play. The Philadelphia Phillies right now have a 7 spot over the Toronto Blue Jays in another doubleheader here. The front game of the doubleheader, 7-0 Phillies and Blue Jays, end of 7, or in other words, in 2020, the final of game number 1. And also, the Nationals and the Marlins. Nationals are up 5-0, bottom 5, in another doubleheader as well. Bottom 5, there is a runner on first base. So please definitely take a peek. MLB.tv, if there's any college students watching, I'm sure there are not because it's Friday night. Be sure to activate your MLB.tv account because it's free for all college students this year. Pretty cool.
Joey, here's an interesting little tidbit we can run. You said it was 7-0 Phillies over the Blue Jays, right?
Yes.
Did the Yankees break them after this past series? Like, are they completely rattled? The Yankees put up over 40 runs on them in that 3-game set. They had 42 runs, 19 home runs. And now Philly's going into their ballpark and putting up 7 on them.
Yeah,
it seems like a lot of questions to begin with respect to their rotation, and it's clearly showing. I mean, they went out there and made a couple of deadline acquisitions, but
yeah, I mean, their little second place. They had a second place stronghold, and it's gone. Yep. It is completely gone. The Yankees have overtaken it. They've won 8 in a row. With almost no signs of slowing down right now. They've got 3 against Boston this weekend, 3 of which the Yankees absolutely have to take all of them if they want to assure their playoff position, as well as try to get that home field over Minnesota, if not catch the Tampa Bay Rays for first place.
Yeah. Really, really crazy stuff to watch for in the next couple of weeks. It's going to be a fun battle to the finish line, fellas, because Major League Baseball is back, and it looks like, again, as we did say earlier at the top of the hour or in the first part of this segment, Major League Baseball is here to stay. And as we do say, why do we say that? Because the stability looks like it's finally here. Once we hit the bubble, I would say the way NBA and the way the National Hockey League look as well, it looks as if we will see stability throughout the whole way until the Commissioner's Trophy is presented to a winner. So really, really good stuff there. Fellas, it's time. It's time to discuss the greatest sport in the entire world. And we do have to do it one more time. And the reason why I'm doing this here is because I actually had to go wait in line for this at Eisenhower Park on Labor Day. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go to Eisenhower Park, and I'm going to go wait for a flag that actually fell out of my car 3 times. Why? Because it's one that you have to close the window and whatever it is. So I put it on my lamp, and my mom yelled at me a few times. But yeah. So last night we got to see the unfortunate part for some, but for Ian and Rob, they were very happy. They don't have to hear my mouth anymore. The Islanders did lose in 6 games to the Tampa Bay Lightning on a little shot by Anthony Cirelli just in front on a centering pass that it looked as if that it was almost a little bit of an error that was made, and we found out that defenseman Adam Pelech played with a broken wrist for 32 minutes in game number 5. A broken wrist. and we had no idea. Fellas, your takeaway from that series, and also I want to know your Stanley Cup final predictions, as well as your thoughts of Tampa and Dallas as well. First, let's start with the Eastern Conference final.
I guess I'll begin. I mean, remember one thing with regards to the game-winning goal. I'm not even so sure Adam Pelech would have been out there. That was the third defensive pairing that was out there of Devon Toews and Scott Mayfield. And I thought it was really a rough Game 6 for Toews and Mayfield. Toews, besides scoring the goal on the wraparound, had two really tough delay of game penalties. That game probably should have been over sooner, considering Mayfield's mark was Andre Palat, and nearly twice that puck ended up in the net from the point. If Palat would have dropped his head and saw where the puck was going, the game would have been over a lot sooner. But with regards to the game itself, the series itself, I mean, how as an Islander fan can you not be happy with the results that your team put out there? I mean, they were really playing with house money, and I hate to say that about the Islanders, but it's true. I mean, listen, before the break, they weren't healthy, they weren't scoring, and they come out and they reach the Eastern Conference Final, and they finish within 2 wins of even almost getting to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time since, what, 1984? And their first, well, they lost in '84. But sorry, my father-in-law is chipping in some information about it. But, and their first Eastern Conference Final appearance since '93, and with all the history that has really beleaguered the Islanders for so long, you know, the Milbury days and so on and so forth. You know, we can go on and on about the history, the last 20 years of New York Islanders history. But it was just great, even as a Ranger fan, and I'm sure Rob will say the same as a Devils fan. It was great to see the Islanders there. If they made it to the Stanley Cup Final, I would have been just as happy for them, because I think this is great for Islander fans. This is great for the Islanders as a team. They clearly have the right guy at the bench. We all knew that when Trotz came in. They clearly have the right GM, and I know Rob can certainly attest to that. So I think it's just it was just a great series. But I think in the grand scheme of things, how many more games could Varlamov steal from you? For you, I should say.
Yeah, I gotta agree completely with Ian here. I mean, there's no way around it. Without Semyon Varlamov, that series easily could have been over in 4 games. It likely would have been over in 4 games. Look, yes, again, Islanders fans have so much to be proud of. They've got all the right pieces. They just went to the Eastern Conference Final for the first time in 27 years. They've got the right pieces. They're finally over that John Tavares skeleton, I guess, or ghost, whatever. The ghost is gone. It's defeated. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. It's gone. They defeated it. But
they also defeated it in his building as well in Toronto.
Absolutely. And it just, unfortunately, it was not enough. But yeah, Semyon Varlamov could have only done so much. Games 5 and 6, I don't want to say were uneventful from the way the Islanders were playing, but my lord, Game 5 might have been one of the worst playoff hockey games I've seen in such a long time. The fact that the Islanders survived that long with Tampa just peppering them. But overall, that game flow was low and uneventful. But nevertheless, the Islanders hung in there, made it to Game 6, and a shot that just trickled to the line, kicked off of Varlamov's back skate and in. Unfortunate way for it to end. But yes, the Islanders do have the pieces to keep this consistently. They're definitely ready to win now. They've got the GM that only wins now. He is not a rebuild GM. The Islanders rebuild is over. If that's what this playoff run can prove us. The rebuild is over. It's time to go win. Got to maybe go buy some players in free agency. There's probably a couple names out there that'll appeal to Lou Lamoriello, and we will see what he can put together for next season. But yes, nonetheless, you just got to love what you're seeing for this Cup final. You got 2 very pesky teams in the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Dallas Stars. Going to be a great series. I expect it to go the entire 7-game distance.
I just think the big question mark for and I'll get to my prediction in a second, and I'm sure Joey can touch on this as well, is that the big piece for the Islanders is that entering this season, they were really strapped for cash. So the question is where exactly are they going to make up the money to try and go out and sign a big free agent? I mean, they just extended, they traded for Pajot and extended him. So where exactly are they going to find this big top-line scorer that they so desperately want and need? In regards to the Stanley Cup final, I think it's going to go 6. I've got the Lightning winning in 6. I just think it's their time. I'm so happy that after losing in 2 Stanley Cup finals, they actually touched the Prince of Wales trophy. I'm so sick of that. This superstitious, you know, what the Rangers
came to an end when both teams touched the cup, their respective trophy 2 years ago. So someone had to win, someone had to lose.
Right. You know, look, the Rangers touched it in 2014. They lost to the Kings and got dominated. So what does it matter whether or not you touch the Prince of Wales trophy at this point?
I believe in touching it. Hold what you earned. You earned that trophy. You won that trophy, and no one can take it away from you.
And they've won it 3 times. So why not at this point? Like, I think Khudobin can steal a couple of wins from them. Obviously, their offense was clicking at the right time as well for Dallas, but I just think it's Tampa Bay's time, and I'm going to say they're going to win it in 6.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've got Tampa in 7. I think this. I agree with you completely. This is Tampa's time. They've got, if they get Stamkos back, it would only benefit them. But I'm also sick of underestimating Dallas. It's clear they can hang around with anybody they want, but this really just is Tampa's time. So they are going to take this in a long, grueling series. It's going to come right down to that final buzzer with Tampa taking it in 7 games.
Yeah, the X factor for me is the fact that the Lightning just need to be able, and the series could end sooner if it happens this way, that the Lightning just need to be able to control the flow of the game for a full 60 minutes. They need to have Braden Point out there every single night because you see how the Lightning play without him. They're just, I mean, to lose Stamkos is one thing, and now to lose Braden Point, who has 9 or 10 goals in this postseason, to lose him is just another thing entirely. So they need to just control the flow of the game for 60 minutes, and that series could end even sooner than 6 or even 7.
Dallas Stars in 7. Big game Ben is, I think he is one part of the puzzle, but I have to say this, and I think this is going to be the best part of that series. And I want to get back to what Ian was talking about with the Islanders in just a moment. But Miro Heiskanen versus Victor Hedman, I think, is going to be the matchup to watch. But I also do believe that if Stamkos comes back, I would love to see Jamie Benn against Steven Stamkos. And because Stamkos has been glassed throughout the latter part of, I don't know, towards the 2010 decade, if you will, we have not really seen him since February, I think 25th. He aggravated an injury, I believe, right after he got surgery. He was bound to play, or he was supposed to be playing in the bubble. That did not happen. But he was there the whole time. He came out yesterday. Apparently, Victor Hedman did say last night, I believe, to Pierre Maguire on NBCSN that they were told to wait for their captain. They were told to wait because he was coming down from the press box, from the stands, wherever it was, he was there. I look at the X factors here, and I want to talk about the second line, which is all of a sudden Dennis Gurianov, who has 17 points. He leads all rookies in points. And then you also have a man like Joe Pavelski, who is all of a sudden he's come into his own. We're starting to see the big Pavelski start to look like the old Pavelski, no pun intended, even though he is closing in on 35 or 36 years old. He just signed in Dallas. I really do believe that it's his time. And I think that with one little ding to Braden Point or Steven Stamkos, this team, it's like a seesaw. It will go flying off. It'll go flying off the seesaw where it will be in favor of Dallas. And I think that right now we are starting to see the way that Dallas has been playing. Kucherov is completely lost without Braden Point or Stamkos in the middle.
But I think Kucherov is also to a certain degree, Joey, has gotten very unlucky.
Yes.
I mean, the number of shots that he peppered Varlamov with, which on nights are probably in the back of the net. I don't think it's so much that he's had bad games. I just think he's flat out getting unlucky. He's unlucky.
Yeah, and we saw it in game number 2 where I believe he had, I think it was like 7 or 8 total shots, and he also had the game winner with that last minute or last few seconds in game 2 of the Eastern Conference Final, where it was a pass right through the middle, right through the slot, and it was just a disaster moving forward. I almost blacked out at that point and don't really remember what happened there. But Jamie Benn, 3 goals, 2 assists, a +2 rating, and 13 total shots in the series against Vegas. He looked fantastic. As we did say, Hedman and Heiskanen, I think that's going to be great. And I also believe that we are going to see Victor Hedman cool down just a little bit because the defense in Dallas is I would say, the next level up, from the Islanders. Going back to the point from Ian Schraier with the Islanders and being cash-strapped, the Islanders right now, they are looking at the possibility of receiving, and this is really the scary part too. There is a realistic possibility that Islanders fans do not want to hear, but there could be an offer sheet written for Matthew Barzal. And you possibly might see it. I really do believe that there is a real possibility because unless he takes a Brock Besser-like deal, which I don't believe that's what Lou Lamoriello wants to do, unless he is able to get rid of Andrew Ladd's contract, Nick Leddy's contract, or Johnny Boychuk's contract, 1 of 3, 2 of 3, whatever the case may be, there will be an offer sheet signed for one of the 3 in Barzal, Devon Toews, and or Ryan Pulock. Those 3 players, in terms of the restricted free agency market, I believe that they are in the top 10 in that. I'm just trying to think right now as we ask our friends from capfriendly.com. The other one would be, again, not even close to where it would be. Matt Murray, Sam Reinhart, Brandon Montour, Ryan Strome. These guys here, I don't personally believe we're going to see, or the only other one that I would say possibly would be, and this isn't a very underrated player who was traded from Detroit to Edmonton, would be Andreas Athanasiou, who really found his own, again, on the wing or on the second line, if you will. So, and he could play any position. Do I think that he could be getting a big money deal? No. I think that those 3 players that I did mention could seriously cause some trouble for the Islanders if things do not go right in the trade market. There's no doubt about it. I'm sorry to interrupt you. And there's no doubt that the team that we saw yesterday, that was the last time that all of those players will be on the ice together. It's not going to happen next year.
My question is I don't know the exact number, and if you have Cap Friendly pulled up in front of you too, Joey, what is their projected cap space? And then for those 3 players that you had mentioned, Toews, Pulock, and Barzal obviously being the most premium player of the 3, are they expecting him to get like an Aho-like offer sheet at this point? I mean, what's the number that they're looking at, and could even the Islanders match it or come even close to matching it?
Well, you see, that is the problem, because right now, at this time, or just a minute before the top of the hour, a minute before 7 o'clock, right now the Islanders have $8.905 million in cap space to play with. That does not include the unrestricted free agents that the Islanders will most likely have to go after, which I would say, Matt Martin. You're not going to be able to re-sign Tom Kuhnackel at $700,000 because I think every little bit of change is going to be used towards Matthew Barzal. He is your cornerstone. And I think now, as we did say, this deal with Andrew Ladd is really hurting them so much, because now you would have about $14 million that you'd still be able to, let's say, pay about $9 to $10 million for Matthew Barzal and still have some money left over to, I would say, stretch it a little bit for Ryan Pulock, potentially trade Nick Leddy. You're not going to be able to trade Johnny Boychuk at full $6 million and a no trade clause. It's not going to happen, and he also has about 4 more years left on his deal. It stings. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think also when we do discuss this, again, on Friday, October 9th, fellas. It's going to be a ton of fun because that is going to be episode number 36, our free agent frenzy show. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I cannot wait. If you guys can come, it's going to be tons of fun. We're going to have some guys that have been on the show before, and also some professional writers and play-by-play guys who will be on here as well, giving their contributions to free agency frenzy. So after that long spiel, Ian, I do apologize because we have gotten off topic there. But there is so much work that needs to be done, and $8.905 million is not a lot to work with when really all of that is going to go, you'd figure, to Barzal alone.
Well, the other piece of it is if a team also ends up offer sheeting. I mean, I know there's been rumors. I mean, they're weeks old rumors at this point that like, oh, would the Rangers think about offer sheeting Matthew Barzal? But do you also want to forfeit the picks as a result? That's the other question mark too. I mean, I know the Rangers have stockpiled a ton of picks over the next couple of years, but the question mark remains. I don't think there's much truth to it, but I definitely think that you're going to have teams that are going to offer sheet Barzal, no question about it.
There's no doubt about it. And not only that, too, you also have to look at the cap space problems for the New York Rangers, where really, by rights, they should have about $20 million in space, but $7.494 million of that is a part of the buyout, thanks in large part to Kevin Shattenkirk. So $7.95 million, you could realistically offer sheet him, but again, would you be willing to give up 4 first-round picks? And hey, listen, Ottawa at one point, they didn't think they would be getting a top 5 pick for a non-protected top 5 pick from San Jose, but hey, listen, anything can happen. It is 2020, fellas. They now have the number 3 and the number 5 pick in this year, and also the number 28 pick for J.G. Pageau this year.
That is very dangerous. Doesn't even begin to describe what the Ottawa Senators could do with this. Like, this is a ridiculously deep draft class. This is going to be draft day is going to be one hell of a day.
Yeah, and on top of it too, let's not forget about draft day, guys. Free agency frenzy is going to be a great day as well, because as it always is in hockey, we also have a lot of players that potentially we may not think are fits, and all of a sudden they make their rounds in there. I want to say this as well. You were talking about Ottawa. They also have to get to the cap floor, and I think they're about $35 million, or if I'm not mistaken, about $20 million away from the cap floor. So we're probably going to see a lot of movement there. They're not ready to take that next step, so we could potentially see some injured reserve players, potentially those long-term IR guys, be swapped there for picks or for a late pick or whatever. We could see maybe I believe who's down in Arizona? It's Marian Hossa, I believe has 1 year left. And we saw obviously with Ottawa just last year, they had Ryan Callahan, they had Marian Gaborik. I think they still have him there. Clark MacArthur, who just unofficially announced his retirement over Instagram. Yeah. So
they've got a ways to go. I mean, when they let Pageau go, I mean, we knew that they were in full rebuild mode, and they're still a while away. But I mean, the fact they're going to have 2 top 5, 3 first-round draft picks is pretty incredible.
It'll be a fun time in Ottawa. I'll say it's a fun time in Ottawa for drafting wise. Yeah, but they're a while away from being competitive again. It was 2016 when they were in the conference final, and from then on, it has just not been a fun time to be a fan of the Senators.
17 days away from the first round of the National Hockey League entry draft that will be taking place virtually. We'll most likely be seeing it on NBC Sports Network, but unfortunately, we were actually supposed to be there. I was supposed to be there this year in Montreal. Would have been a fun road trip, but unfortunately, again, 2020 came through and things hit the fan. So let's keep moving forward in hockey, fellas, because look, we're already 5 minutes past the top of the hour, and we always get sidetracked. We always get, it's a fun time, fun Friday night to speak about sports, fellas. How about a new division rival once again? It's been a few years since we've heard the name Peter Laviolette in the Metropolitan Division, but he is now at the helm of the, drumroll please, Washington Capitals. Guys, I'm going to start this one off here because I've just been spewing diarrhea out of the mouth, and I know that's what our fans are saying as well. It's very evident that they messed up with Todd Reirden. There was no experience. When you have a team that's ready to win now, you need experience. This is a fantastic hire. Who wants to take it next?
I will, because I have a lot to say about this. I apologize, Ian. But
no, that's all right.
I've got things to say. Because, and I do know this for sure, he was hired by the New Jersey Devils. It's not that talks fell apart and they didn't hire him. It was done. But then he jumped the gun, and apparently it turned into wanting the Babcock contract in terms of years. We were willing to give him the $5 million a year that Washington just paid him. But instead of doing it for 3 years like he agreed to in Washington, he wanted 8 years in New Jersey because he knew it wasn't going to be a quick win right now, right away. So he wanted the security if things went south. But that being said, that's just my little rant on that. On me being annoyed that I'm stuck with Lindy Ruff, who I'm giving the benefit of the doubt for now. But nonetheless, this is absolutely an amazing hire by the Washington Capitals. This is a coach that really only is familiar with winning, especially when he first gets to a new destination. I think he's missed the playoffs a grand total of 3 times in his entire coaching career. So he definitely knows how to win games. He's definitely going to bring something to the Capitals that they had in 2018 with Barry Trotz and now don't have anymore, and are looking to get back.
And the thing that they're actually getting back that they were missing, besides the winning pedigree, and like you said, Rob, the coaching accomplishments for Peter Laviolette definitely speak for themselves, but the thing that they were missing under Todd Reirden is accountability, discipline. A guy who's been there before. And that's what they had under Trotz, and that's what they're going to get under Laviolette. And again, like Rob said, and I'm going to reiterate, I'm going to rehash the point because it's important to say it. The guy wins wherever he goes. You know, when he was in Carolina, won a cup, went to a cup final with Nashville, went to a cup final with Philadelphia. The guy has that winning pedigree, and with a team that is real, its window is closing very rapidly, and Ovi is in the last year of his contract. This is the perfect guy to have there. Now, my question is supposedly the fact that they did not approach Alexander Ovechkin when they hired Peter Laviolette. Now, I'm not saying you have to compare it to like when it's the NBA and whatever team LeBron James plays for at the time. Will he fit with LeBron? But Ovechkin is one of the best players in the NHL, still one of the best players in the world, and that just begs the question: why didn't they approach him about this before hiring Laviolette? I don't know. I'm curious to get your thoughts to see if that does raise some red flags. But again, this is a guy, like we said, that knows how to win, has been there before, and certainly the right guy behind the bench for the Capitals, at least for the near future.
Yeah, for me, I think when it comes to not approaching your superstar, that's how hockey likes to say their run. Look, we're the guys in charge. This is who we're hiring. Make it work. Or you can, well, obviously, Ovechkin, but yeah. But
that was my fault.
Or otherwise, guess what? We'll find new arrangement for you. Never Ovechkin, but just case in point, like if you've got a problem, you're likely not going to win. Ownership and GMs make the decisions, not players. In the NBA, it's very clear that that's not how that goes anymore. It's very clear the superstars of the NBA have all the power when it comes to hiring coaches, and that's just not how it's done in hockey. Not that it works in basketball. They get the guy they want. The superstar doesn't complain because they got their little coach, and then they're kissing their ankles or whatever. But hockey, it's more directed. It's like, we are going to hire this guy. We think he's going to work well. Make it work. That's just it.
And the best part is when you think that the end has come now, the window has closed on the Washington Capitals, it just opens just a little bit more for this final year of Ovechkin's contract.
That's all it takes sometimes.
That's all it takes. And now, again, we're talking about the Capitals as a Stanley Cup threat.
I personally believe that the window has not officially closed, but I think that the window is cracked a tiny bit. And fellas, Braden Holtby is most likely going to be hitting free agency.
Yes.
He has been the rock in net for the last however many years. Let's not forget, guys, Philip Grubauer 2 years ago was named the starter against Columbus. They fell into a 2-0 hole, and then who comes in to save the day and also gets to raise their first Stanley Cup in history? Braden Holtby. He will not, I'm going to say this, unless he takes a monumentally, and no pun intended because the name of the group is Monumental Sports and Entertainment. I thank you. I know. Listen, I have to try and be the Nick Partain when it comes to puns. Okay, it takes a little while. So again, it would take a monumental talk from General Manager Brian McClellan, who can potentially persuade him into taking a hometown discount. I don't see it happening. But what I do see, though, we are not going to see a deal like how Sergei Bobrovsky got. Let's not forget, there is a flat cap in the NHL this year. We don't know what is going to be the following year, 21, 22, and potentially onward. So we could potentially see, I think, maybe a $5 million cap hit for a guy like Braden Holtby. I don't personally believe that he will be back in Washington. I can see them going after a veteran and potentially trying to try and bloom. I would say Ilya Samsonov.
That's their guy.
That is their guy.
Yeah. It's their guy. It's like Sorokin. Ilya Sorokin is now the Islanders guy. This is
not just yet. He's still going to go into the season next year as the backup, obviously, after this.
Right, of course. But Varlamov's your guy for now, but Sorokin's the guy you're developing, just like Samsonov is the guy they were developing, but now developed. He is now their guy. I agree completely. Braden Holtby will not be a Washington Capital.
But don't forget, fellas, too. Remember when Varlamov at one point in Washington was the guy, and then all of a sudden, then he was traded to Colorado because Holtby was the guy. It is a domino effect just a few years later, and now we're starting to see it. Looking back, Ian, just one quick thing before we get to you again. Alexander Ovechkin, he makes this year, he is a UFA after this season. $9.538 million. Now, there were talks and there were rumors. I don't know how true these rumors are, but this is something that I did see on social media, that he wants a ballpark. He wants a raise about 10 or 11 million. Listen, you're going to be 35 years old. You have a flat cap. And if you want to be selfish, head back to the KHL. Head back home.
There's the door over there.
Exactly. Because
I don't see a team be completely desperate, though. I'm not.
Well, the problem though is, and again, I'm sure we'll be having this discussion on our special free agency frenzy show, Ian. But right now, you have Nicholas Backstrom, who's making $9.2 million, Evgeny Kuznetsov making $7.8 for the next 5 years, and then John Carlson making $8 million for the next however many years.
Right.
And then, you know,
he would stay in Washington if he really wanted that kind of money. I'm saying I could see another team that might. You know, I'm not saying would he become like another Kessel and go to Arizona, but I'm just throwing ideas out there as a possibility if he wanted that kind of money and a team in the NHL was willing to give him that kind of money at 35.
I don't see it. I don't see it unless
it literally couldn't be more than like a 2-year contract at that point. You can't give a guy this old that much money and also give him term, which I'm sure he's going to want.
Well, but you know what though? See, this is what I love in the National Hockey League. Once you're over 35 years old, there's something that's called a 35+ contract that comes into effect. So there's a lot of things that also protects the team as well when you sign a contract after 35 years old. So it's going to be a lot of fun with Washington because, as we did say earlier, the window is still cracked a tiny bit. But there is a lot of question marks in front of Ilya Samsonov because Peter Laviolette can only do so much. Can they win without Alexander Ovechkin? I don't know, but there's a lot of money tied up in a few players, as I did mention earlier. and they have some moves to make, guys. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see center iceman from the juniors. He was a first-round draft pick just last year, Connor McMichael. And, you know, really, he's a left-handed center. I personally believe that and even though obviously Ovechkin is a winger, we are going to start to see the youth movement. It has to happen in Washington. They can't afford it. They simply cannot afford it. And on top of it, too, if Samsonov does well next year, he could be in for a raise. Now, talk about the problems that they could have there.
Well, can I zing you here for a second here, Joey? Because
of course you can. Of course you can. Again,
I do want to take us back to about 2 or 3 weeks ago when Islander fans were throwing the book at Semyon Varlamov for Thomas Greiss. Just remember that when we went back to Game 7 of the Eastern Conference.
Game 7.
And the three of us were here having this discussion about who is the guy to go to. And I'm saying Varlamov's got to be the guy. And most of Islanders Nation is sitting here begging and pleading for Thomas Greiss, even though Greiss's presence in the net really, in the grand scheme of the final score, really did not mean all that much. And then you get to the Eastern Conference Final, and Varlamov is your guy, and you see that he's your guy. I just think it's funny to go back to 2 weeks ago when fans were clamoring that Greiss was the guy and Varlamov was.
Yeah, well, you know what? I will tell you this. Thomas Greiss just came off of a 3-year deal worth about $10 million, 3.33, you know, with the little bar on top there. So $3.33 million AAV. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a 2-year deal worth about $4 to $5 million. Hey, listen, it can happen. You know what? That's a bold prediction.
But is it going to happen with the New York Islanders?
No.
Exactly. I didn't think so.
His time with the New York Islanders is done. But you're ready for this, fellas? And again, this is just a little bit of a bold prediction because, again, this is the time. I absolutely love hockey free agency. This is the time where I can see – right, but I can see this team potentially making a move for him. Hold on. Wait for it. The Edmonton Oilers.
Really?
I can. And why? Because the Edmonton Oilers cannot get out of their own way. That's the reason.
No, they really can't. They really can't. So, right, they can't get out of their own way. So what makes you think they're going to make a move for him? Because they can't get out of their own way. So why would they make a smart move like that, like going for this man?
Because I personally believe that Thomas Greiss, once he's done, now that he's done, we have seen certain goaltenders, they've gone from where they've done particularly well, and then they slowly start to fall off the bandwagon, okay? We saw Mike Smith do phenomenal in Calgary, and all of a sudden, he went downhill once he actually reunited with his old coach in Arizona. He couldn't get it done. He could not get it done. Edmonton could get it done, and I personally believe that's what I'm saying is that I think with, again, $10 million to play, I don't think it's going to be at that term because Mikko Koskinen is making $4.5 million for the next 2 years. I can see him going in there as a backup. I can, and potentially
I think wherever Greiss goes, it will be as a backup likely. I mean, does he have the stuff to be a starter? It could be, but I think anywhere he goes, anywhere around the league, he's going to be a backup.
Any final thoughts, Ian and Rob, before we move on to some Minnesota Wild news?
I think "can't get it done" is probably the best 4 words to describe the Edmonton Oilers over the last decade. So I think you guys put it pretty boldly and pretty vividly. So I can't get on to that.
1,210 career NHL games, ranked second all-time among American-born coaches. He's also ranked 16th overall for all-time coaching wins with 637. That is the new Washington Capitals head coach, Peter Laviolette. He's also made it to the Cup final, as Ian did say, 2016 against Pittsburgh. He lost in 6 games. Let's move on to the Minnesota Wild, and we got to hear some hard news from the likes of Bill Guerin, the general manager, and the Islanders' old captain. God help us during those times. But Jonas Brodin, excuse me. He just signed a $42 million contract for 7 years, $6 million AAV. Pretty good stuff. But, guys, there's a little bit of a problem here. A little bit of a speed bump. And $27 million is tied up into their top 4 defensemen in 21-22. Brodin, Spurgeon, Suter, and Dumba. Guys, we're starting to see Matt Dumba's name appear in a lot of trade rumors. This deal, is it a good one? And who gets moved? Is it Dumba or is it somebody else?
Ian, you go first this time.
I think Dumba is the one that gets moved. A lot of what I'm reading is suggesting that, yeah, everything for some reason is locked into their 4 starting defensemen. They are lacking exceptionally a number 1 center. I mean, they're really lacking a center on a couple of lines. But for Minnesota, the big question mark is the number 1 center. Where do they go at this point? They have so much money locked up in defensemen that they're actually cap strapped to a certain degree that whoever they're going to acquire, it's going to have to be in a trade. So I don't know where they go from here. I think it's great that the Wild are continuing to stay strong on the defensive side, but who's putting pucks in the back of the net right now for you? And I think that's something that is really, I should say, is really highlighting the fact that they need to trade one of these defensemen for some sort of top line center. I just don't know where they go from here.
And now,
yeah, I mean,
go ahead,
Joey, go. All right. No, yeah, I think it's got to. Yeah, I think it'll be Dumba that's moved. His name. It'll be easier to move him. His contract's a little smaller, so it'll be easier to move him. And yeah, what Ian said in the number 1 center thing. This Brodin deal has already cost them their captain. They had to say goodbye to their captain today. Mikko Koivu will not be back with the Minnesota Wild. It'll be very, very interesting to see where he ends up. A potential Lou Lamoriello move with a guy like Mikko Koivu. If I say so myself.
Well, I mean, the way center depth is right now for the New York Islanders, I don't see that unless Matthew Barzal is heading somewhere else. But God help me if that is said. And we'll actually, for those that are watching right now, please record this, because if that does happen, I will cry, and I will make sure that on this camera I will cry again
if he's willing to drop his price a little bit, you should be worried that he goes to the other New York in Manhattan. I'd be a little more worried about that for their center depth's sake, which they don't have a lot of.
I definitely don't. From the Rangers' end, I definitely don't see that happening. I think they would try to go elsewhere for experience, maybe not so much a Mikko Koivu.
And they're also not ready for to give up 4 first-rounders as well. So going back to Minnesota, guys, Eric Staal was just traded for Marcus Johansson, which really I don't think Marcus Johansson has played center since his days in Washington. I don't know what that move was about.
I got nothing for you. And poor Eric Staal.
No. I will tell you this, Rob, and I personally believe that this is a good move by Buffalo. You know,
it's a move for Buffalo. It's not even a question.
No, because now you also reunite with Jeff Skinner, who they've had chemistry from Carolina.
That was a long time ago. Wow, that was a long time ago. Eric Staal hasn't been on Carolina in like 7 years. So, and it'll be interesting. But yes, it will be great to see that. But I don't think it's enough because it's still Buffalo.
Continuing with this, fellas, let's not forget, you guys both said Matt Dumba is currently making $6 million, and this is the gold piece right here. He's a right-handed defenseman, and he's making $6 million with a no movement. Oh, sorry, he does not have a no movement clause. For teams that need a right-handed defenseman, it is legitimate gold. Now, this team is not going to be retaining any salary because they also just traded for Nick Bjugstad for a conditional 7th-round choice. And the hilarious part is that this conditional 7th-round choice is that this pick is transferred if Bjugstad plays in 70 games, LOL, or earns 35 points, LOL. It's not happening. So good for Minnesota because they were able to get someone. And again, as Ian Schraier says, and this should be the new name of the show, they're playing with house money.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that. Minnesota's just trying to figure it out at this point because they're in a weird spot. It's like It's like the
window.
window.
It did not work out. I'm sorry to interrupt you. It did not work out with Victor Rask either. He was a scratch for most of the time.
Yeah,
he was injured, but it hasn't worked out with him either.
But with Minnesota, it's like they're trying to figure out, are they going to a rebuild or are they still trying to go for the win? It's like the window's trying to shut and someone from Minnesota dove through the window to keep it from completely closing. And it's completely impossible to see what it is, the direction they want to go in, whether it's start over or go now. Because especially with the move like Johansson for Stahl, I literally have no idea what direction they're trying to go in.
Well, I just think from the forward position, Rob, they just need to try to get younger. It just seems like every time we're talking about getting older and older.
Yeah, like for a team this old, you think they're trying to go for the win here, but are they?
I couldn't tell you. And, well, I think the biggest question mark last year was when they signed Matt Zuccarello to a hefty deal. And on top of it, too, it was a no-movement clause. So you have now a second or actually a first-line left or right winger, or really a left winger in Matt Zuccarello, because Zach Parise can't play for – I mean, there have been times when we've seen him on first line on the first line, and he's also making $7.538461 million. God help, who I don't know who that was, Chuck Fletcher or whoever made that deal when the whole everything that happened there. Again, we don't know what direction they're going in, but in terms of the Jonas Brodin deal, fellas, I think that this is fantastic for them. And again, Matt Dumba is on his way out. It's just a matter of where. Do we agree or disagree on that? And if not, where do we think he goes?
It's tough. I mean, to think about it, like I could see them trying to hang on to him, but then it's clear the expenses would have to come from somewhere else to, keep him. But I don't know. I mean, look, would I love to say I would love to see Matt Dumba in New Jersey? Absolutely. I would take Matt Dumba in New Jersey yesterday. But granted, well, I mean, when you look at my defense, that's really not saying a whole lot. But on the other hand, it's just like I think Minnesota's going to try to find a way to keep him, but in the end, it won't work out. I have no idea where he could possibly go.
I don't think I have much to add to that. Rob basically hit the nail on the head. I think we're just kind of rehashing the same point. It's just I think Dumba's going to be the one to go, but where does he go? Tune in a couple of weeks for free agency frenzy.
It's really true because we're going to see a lot of movement this year, and I think also with the flat cap being coming into effect, I think that the amount of chess that's going to be played between all 31 National Hockey League general managers is going to be the best game of chess I think that we have ever seen. And I hate to keep saying that 2020 will be bringing more surprises. I personally believe it will, especially in a couple of weeks. 17
the middle of September. Can't this year stop already?
Oh man, not soon enough. Not soon enough. But excuse me. So let's get to football, fellas. There's so much to talk about there. And we brought up everything with football just a couple of weeks ago, and things looked okay. How about some like a little bit of a recap here? We did speak about, and I know I told Ian Schraier this when he was on at one point. We were going to see injuries happen week one. It was a matter of time. There's no preseason. There's barely any workouts. There's barely any OTAs. There's nothing. So we are going to see the amount of injuries start to pile up. And guess what, fellas? It happened. Marlon Mack blew out his Achilles. Indianapolis running back. Miles Sanders, Philadelphia running back, is out due to a bad hamstring. Michael Thomas hurt himself. He had a high ankle sprain against Tampa. The positives, Cam Newton looked great. Kyler Murray in Arizona, they beat San Francisco. The Rams, they I don't want to say it was an upset, but I'm going to say in their home building, I guess they were favorite. I don't really know how you could say that they are.
They were an underdog. I think they were a 2.5-point underdog.
Yeah, it was a close line, but they were favored.
Yeah, and don't forget too, Josh Jacobs for the new Las Vegas Raiders. He had 3 touchdowns. How about Mitchell Trubisky? He had 3 second-half touchdowns. Really, really good stuff.
Did
the Bears back.
Did the Bears win? Did the Bears lose?
Did you see the Andre Swift drop with 7 seconds left in the end zone?
Yeah. Oh, we all saw that. We all saw that. So it's like, really, did the Bears win or did the Lions lose?
What was it? What was it? 23-6 in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
Minnesota also allowed 43 points to Green Bay. Devontae Adams had 14 receptions that tied a franchise record. Also, Washington scored 27 unanswered points. Do not say a word, Rob DeLuca. Washington scored 27 unanswered points to the Philadelphia Eagles. They were at 1 point leading. Oh, okay. You either, Ian Schraier. Don't say a word.
I can't say much. My team lost too. It's fine.
We're all sitting here 0-1. Come on now. This is the Washington football team's
That's right. That's right.
Right now, and we are living in it.
And Steven Gostkowski, he looked pretty awful. He made 25% of his kicks, and the one kick that he did made just so happened to be the go-ahead field goal. So,
like, go figure, came right from New England, right?
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, hey, don't get me wrong. It is New England Music City down there, the way that it is. Fellas, even though we read all of this, what was your takeaway from week number 1? Because, guys, football is back.
My biggest take from week 1 is the fact that so far as we've seen, 0 positive COVID tests. That is impressive. I remember weeks ago we were talking about why can't the NFL have a bubble? Well, after week 1, it looks like we've had, and Thursday Night Football for week 2, it looks like we've had 0 positive COVID tests. So that to me is the biggest positive take out of it. It's great to have football. It was great to watch Scott Hansen at 1 o'clock on Sunday with 7 hours of commercial-free football. It was fantastic. But like I said, just to reiterate, it's great to have football back and 0 positive COVID tests. I know I keep reiterating it, but it's just great to see it.
Gotta love it. I mean, yeah. I mean, look, everyone's like, oh, no, it's never going to work without a bubble. Well, you know what? Take that. Because just take that. And, like, I will, like, yeah, now we get to do the laughing in your face because you're all complaining, oh, bubble's not going to work. Well, guess what? The NFL just made it work, so deal with it. Football is back, and it's here to stay.
Well, I'm going to tell you guys one thing, and I know that most of us do not want to hear this, but what is the incubation period for the virus? I think it's about 2 weeks. So,
I heard you could start seeing something about 2 days.
Right, exactly. So
anywhere from 2 days to like 12 days, I think, is what it is.
Right. So I love the optimism, obviously, and I love the positive signs of encouragement here, Ian. But I think the biggest thing here is that, yes, we haven't seen any COVID tests, but we did see a little bit in preseason or in training camp or I don't want to call it summer camp like how they did with baseball. But I think starting week 2 or even week 3, we could potentially start seeing stuff. But you know what? I will give you this, though. It definitely is a positive sign.
Yeah. Yeah. How about the fact that you had teams going up against each other in training camp? I mean, yes, it remains to be seen that with teams traveling across the country, are we going to start to see positive tests? Possibly. Yes. There's certainly a strong possibility of that. But you know what? I'm an optimistic person, and I'm trying to stay optimistic. I love football, and it was just great, with fans or not, to see 2 teams on the gridiron for 4 days. And it just felt like we've said. I think we've said this word for the last 6 months. It felt normal.
Yeah, it really did. And this is something that I've been wanting to share for quite a long time. And actually since Sunday at around 4:30. Or actually, no, sorry, not Sunday. About Monday night, right after the Giants fell, and it's no dig. It's no dig to either one of you guys or even Giants fans. It is just the normal reality, and this is what 2020 has become. Fellas, the NFC East leaders currently, right now, is a team without a name, and they are.
They have a name. Yes,
that is what we are losing to. Football, we're all trailing by a game right now,
is the Washington football team. Now, they don't have a name. They don't have a name. They are just Washington.
And their logo is just a W.
That's all it
I think
is.
it actually looks pretty cool. I'm not going to lie.
But yeah, it is nice. And hey,
I think the color scheme, even though it's
they're
very, very
wrapping the logo well. They did.
yeah, it looks really cool. It really does.
Well, you know what? Listen, I'll tell you one thing, guys. Okay, and you know what? Listen, I'm a big believer in trying to be, what's the word? I would say different. Okay, and trying to really come up with your own logo. But I think that for our video gamers out there, they would know what the W really stands for. And it's Wario.
That's just a Wario reference.
That just happened. I love it.
And you know what? And just think about it, because this is fairly close to the other one, to their W. It really is. There was no thought. I mean, don't get me wrong. Listen,
Did we just peak? Did this show just peak? It might have.
I think it did. I think it might.
You haven't started dropping Mario Party or Mario Kart.
Listen. I will start taking out the N64 cartridges in just a second. All right. I'll start taking stuff like that out. But no. In all seriousness, listen. First you have this, okay, and then you have that. So it's fairly close. It's just change the font on Microsoft Word and call yourself a football team.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that probably view Dan Snyder as the Wario of the National Football League.
Oh man,
Good.
that is good. That is good. Yeah. But now we have to look ahead to week number 2, fellas, and I'm going to start this one off. The biggest thing here for me is, and this also has to do with health, humans, and everything else. I think the biggest concern here is going to be the air quality in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I think because obviously San Francisco, they were able to make it through against Arizona, I believe. I believe they were in San Francisco last week.
That's correct.
Yeah, so they made it through. There was not a lot of I don't think any. I don't know.
No real issue.
I believe, and Tevin Coleman did play. There was a possibility where he was not able to play. And we've heard his name before when he was with Atlanta when they had traveled to Mile High. And he was not. They were not able to have him on the field because of him playing at 3,700 feet. So that would not be good there. So yeah, so that would be my number one thing, would be the air quality for New England, for Seattle. But also something else here, guys, is that it is the first game in Las Vegas, the coolest thing, and also for one that has driven right around there for work and seeing the big Darth Vader stadium as it was being built. The place is going to be phenomenal.
Okay.
Can't wait to visit there. And my third key to week number 2, Arizona looks to go 2-0. I can't wait to see what Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins can do. It's going to be tons of fun. Ian Schraier, your thoughts on week number 2?
Okay, we need to start archiving things. I'm not trying to give myself credit here, but I'm pretty sure a couple weeks ago I said that Arizona was my sleeper team in the NFC. And I love everything. I just love everything about the way the Cardinals are playing. Obviously, I think they have a very, very favorable matchup with a much more stable offensive line right now than the Eagles do. So that's going to certainly help their case with regards to facing the Washington football team. I think they'll start out 2-0, which will look great for Arizona, looking good for Kyler Murray. Any big stories leading into week 2? We'll see what happens with regards to, like you said, with Kyler Murray, the air quality in Seattle. We'll see how the Chiefs look in week 2, coming off their great offensive performance in, what's now 10 days ago. So week 2 is a big week for a lot of teams because you know what, you've gotten over that week 1, I guess, hurdle, so to speak, and teams like the Giants, the Eagles, can't really afford to start out 0-2. I guess you could say to a certain degree for guys like us, like Giants and Eagles fans like we are, that we're looking above us and we see that the Giants, the Eagles, the Cowboys are all 0-1. And the team that is above us is the team that's supposed to finish in last place. So it definitely has to make you feel a little good about things. I was actually very pleased with the performance from the Giants on Monday night. There was a lot of positives to take out of there. I know there was something on Twitter that said, whoever takes the silver linings out of this game have no idea what they're talking about. Really, you tell me what you saw the last 4 years under Shermer and McAdoo, and compared to what you saw defensively out of Joe Judge's and Patrick Graham's coaching scheme, and Jason Garrett even offensively, minus the fact that the Steelers got to Saquon every time he touched the ball, and tell me you don't feel good about the future of Daniel Jones, that you don't feel good about the future of a defense that you probably thought the score was going to be 21-28 nothing at halftime, and they were within a possession at the half. So I'll be curious to see how the local teams look. I'm not very high on the Jets this week. They are incredibly banged up. They're facing a reigning NFC champion team in the 49ers, so we'll see how the local teams look too.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. With the Giants, with the Jets. I personally believe, I got to tell you, I got to give credit to the Giants, even though that they couldn't get it done against Pittsburgh. Who do they? I'm drawing a blank.
They're in Chicago this week.
They're in Chicago. It's going to be a tough go round against Khalil Mack. But credit to them. Hey, listen, Darius Slayton looked good. Rob DeLuca, we all know that. Listen, he looked good.
You won me a good chunk of change, all right, for catching that first touchdown of the game, all right? I want a good chunk of change from that.
I saw that post on Twitter. I did.
Oh, yeah. That was a beautiful moment. I just couldn't believe it.
He looked good.
He had himself a great game. Easily the best Giant out there. Not even a question among anything else. Everything about the Giants looked okay. Daniel Jones was fine, other than that interception. He led that 19-play drive really well. He just made that kid mistake that he's gonna learn from, and then the defense was fine. They just ran out of gas like usual. Like when you're out there for 40 minutes out of the 60, you're gonna run out of energy, and that's just what happened. And then, of course, there's the offensive line of this team, and oh my God, I think they got worse. It is unbelievable. It looked like Jones had time, but that's because he's more mobile than Eli Manning was. Jones is able to move around and create himself some time. But Barkley couldn't do a thing because of this protection.
Well, Rob, actually, it's twofold. He actually, believe it or not, wasn't as mobile as people thought on Monday night. He actually got rid of the ball a lot quicker. Yep. But because I think he was put in a situation where he kind of had to. Remember, a lot of those throws that he made, aside from the touchdown pass to Slayton, were really 5 to 10 yard possession throws. He wasn't really trying to go down the field all that much. But I actually thought I know a lot of people are going to look at the offensive line and say Saquon Barkley, 8 rushes for -8 yards. Saquon didn't do such a great job in pass protection either. If you actually look at the videotape and watch the game again and see how poorly Saquon played and was in pass protection. I thought the Giants' new left tackle, Andrew Thomas, actually was the best player on that line. The right side of the line was really what got blown up, which is pretty shocking. I know Cam Fleming came over from Dallas, but Kevin Zeitler, who's an all-pro, I'm shocked that the right side of the line had the struggles that it did. Nick Gates definitely had some struggles at center, but I thought in comparison to last year, yeah, the rushing numbers certainly did not show the way they should have, nor were they anywhere close. But I actually was happy to a certain degree with what I saw from the O-line. I thought they actually gave, it wasn't like what we've seen in the past couple of years from Eli, where he was kind of running for his life or kind of ducking underneath the sack because he knew it was coming and he was kind of playing like a scared kid out there. So I'll be curious to see what we see out of week 2. I mean, the Bears also have certainly a vaunted front with guys like Khalil Mack, who I know is questionable, and so is Robert Quinn. We'll see if they play on Sunday, but I actually like their chances on Sunday, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, because don't get me wrong. Listen, Mitchell Trubisky, it could be another flash in the pan where, as it did say, even though it was technically or on the score sheet 3 touchdowns in the second half. Listen, his name was all over the tabloids there, where he was able to lead his team back. And who knows? Is it a one hit wonder, or is he seriously back? And has Matt Nagy done something to the former number 2 overall pick?
He also has a very unhappy number 1 wide receiver in Chicago right now, and Allen Robinson.
That's right. Who needs attention? Yeah, Rob DeLuca, your thoughts as we head into the final 15 minutes of the show. Your thoughts on week number 2. What do you expect, and what do you look forward to?
I'm looking, obviously, as a Giant fan, I'm looking for them to bounce back and recover against a team that I think they can very much beat. I don't like the line that they gave the Bears. I think it was too high at -5.5. But yeah, so I would like to see the Giants recover, play a full 60 minutes, find a way to go 1-1, because as Ian stated earlier, can't afford to go 0-2. It just can't happen. You got to find a way to win this game. Very simple. So with that, and then also in week 2, I'm wondering what the Jaguars might be able to do. You know, can they go 2-0 after shocking the world and beating the Colts just this past Sunday, which no one expected? I was in a survivor pool. I picked the Colts, so I'm already dead. And it was week 1. I'm already dead. So I would love to see the Jaguars. Because I said this when sports were finally coming back. I'm like, you know what? None of my teams are going to be remotely competitive outside of the New York Yankees. But yeah, most of my teams are not going to be competitive. So you know what? I hope chaos reigns supreme. Let that continue. Bring on more chaos for week 2. There's my final thought on week 2.
Oh my goodness! All right, well that is something from Rob DeLuca in terms of week number 2. Lots of good games to be seen. Really good stuff. But fellas, one last hit with week number 2, Monday night's game, Las Vegas and New Orleans. That is weird to say. New Orleans and Vegas. They open up Allegiant Stadium. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but the new what did they call it? The new
Black Hole, is it? Or
no, it's something that has to do with Darth Vader. I'm not really a Star Wars guy, but they said something about Darth Vader in there. But whatever it is, Michael Thomas has an eye ankle sprain. We spoke about that earlier. Ian Schraier, how big is this how big of a loss is this for Drew Brees? You know, especially after doing really well. He didn't really have to do much. You know, or have to really throw to Michael Thomas last game. But again, the wide receiver core is thin beyond Emmanuel Sanders.
3 receptions for 17 yards on Sunday. Michael Thomas clearly playing also with a high ankle sprain. Entered the season arguably the #1 wide receiver right now in the National Football League.
Right.
I think they should still be okay offensively. I do. I mean, there's actually even talk that the fact that Michael Thomas might actually play this week, he still hasn't even been ruled out. Even after the initial discussions were that he's going to probably sit about 6 to 7 weeks.
Yep.
So I'll be curious to see what the injury report says come Sunday morning. Remember, they still put up even though Michael Thomas only had 3 catches for less than 20 yards, they still put up 34 points on a loaded Tampa Bay offense. I think Brady and the Bucs still look pretty good offensively against a pretty solid defensive team in the Saints. Emmanuel Sanders has got to help them. I mean, he's a guy with #1 wide receiver experience. You are right, Joey. They are very, very thin at the other wide receiver spots. Is a guy like Traquan Smith going to step up? Do they include Deontay Harris, their vaunted punt and kick returner, involved in some packages? Do they even, nothing really alludes to Sean Payton. Do they even think about, splitting Taysom Hill out wide? I mean, that's certainly a possibility. I think they're going to be just fine. Against the Raiders gave up a lot of passing yards last week to the Carolina Panthers. I know the Raiders are opening up the stadium. I don't think they're going to have any fans there. So, so with regards to the Saints, I still don't think they're going to have trouble moving the ball offensively. And Jared Cook led the team in receiving yards last week against the Buccaneers. So it wasn't even Sanders who had a touchdown, or Michael Thomas. It was their tight end in Jared Cook. So I think they're going to be just fine. They're certainly going to lack that #1 receiving threat, but they have other weapons around the field. Oh, and let's not forget they also have this guy named Alvin Kamara, who's pretty good.
Yeah. And then let's not forget too, the reason why we bring this up is because, there was a quarter to forget, if you will. 4 total net yards in the third quarter for the Saints, fewest since week number 3 in 2012. We look to the next few weeks of the New Orleans Saints. Week 2, as we did say, is at Las Vegas. Then they come home against Green Bay, and their defense is nothing to play around with. Then they go to Detroit, another NFC North foe. And then they come home week number 5 against the Los Angeles Chargers. Why did I bring those dates up? Because we have no idea how long Michael Thomas will be out for, could be out for, and those 2 games that I brought up, Green Bay and the LA Chargers, have daunting defenses. Let's not forget.
How daunting is Green Bay considering they just gave up 30-something points to Minnesota?
True. Oh, that's fair. It was a shootout. That's definitely fair. Then let's look at the secondary then for the Chargers. I don't know. Casey Hayward is a pretty good corner.
They're still missing a pretty big safety, though.
In Derwin James.
Yep, and they're still missing a pretty big safety. Now, keep in mind, when the Chargers do have a pretty solid defense, obviously Joey Bosa is the anchor of that along with Melvin Ingram.
Yep.
But remember, when you watch them go against the Bengals week 1, what side of the line were they going up against? They were going up against the right side, which was led by that great all-pro right tackle from the Giants and Bobby Hart. So even though most right tackles can't control Joey Bosa and control that, control his abilities, I could, from you reading off those names, Joey, I could easily see the Saints starting out 5-0 without Michael Thomas.
They could. They really could.
Prediction.
I don't see a single team there that they can't beat because Green Bay. I mean, remember, Green Bay in the NFC Championship game last year got embarrassed by the 49ers. And their defense week 1 against Minnesota did not show. Just thankfully the fact that Aaron Rodgers found his form from about 3 or 4 years ago and threw for as many touchdowns as he did. So you're telling me Las Vegas, who allowed over 100 receiving yards to a former Jet and Robbie Anderson last week. I don't know the exact number of passing yards up last week. Then you have Green Bay, who just gave up 30-something points. Then you have the Lions, who just choked away the 4th quarter. And then you have the Chargers. So if anything, start out 4-0, and maybe the game against the Chargers is a little more well contested. But as long as Tyrod Taylor is the quarterback of the Chargers, I don't see them scoring many points. So that's why I said 5-0 is a very realistic possibility for the North.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the Saints have always been a good team. It's very rare that they have a bad season, and right now is no exception. They are stacked. Even though they did lose a big weapon here, but they always seem to find a way. Sean Payton, Drew Brees, all of them seem to find a way. So I think they will find a way. I do feel that the Packer game will be very interesting because it is 2 good quarterbacks. It's going to be probably a very high-scoring game. But I do think 5-0, very realistic.
Could be. Could also be a shootout with Green Bay. I'm not going to say that with Los Angeles, but what I will say is that, even though they are missing Derwin James, though, is that do not sleep on the rest of that defense. And if the front 7 can do their job in LA, could be a low scoring game. And we've seen it too with New Orleans, where they got blanked by Minnesota in the wild card round. So it could be a possibility, just like how it was last year. Fellas, 7 minutes to go here in the show. We got some breaking news here to be brought to everyone's attention. This is actually some hockey breaking news, and that is that the St. Louis Blues have officially broken off talks with their captain and right-handed defenseman, Alex Pietrangelo, and the team has advised Pietrangelo to, quote, pursue unrestricted free agency. So now we have another.
Does he want to come to Manhattan or New Jersey? Both teams will be happy to take him.
Yes, please. Here's a blank check. Save me.
What I will say is that who knows if the Broadway Blue Shirts want to make the same mistake as they did with Kevin Shattenkirk, because right now
Angelo is such a better player.
We'll see.
Will see it because I'll make the mistake because we can't get any worse back there.
Right.
I'm not so sure the Rangers can get much worse either, to be quite honest with you.
So continuing on here, fellas, in the last 5 minutes, let's do this. Or actually, let's do a little speed round in the last 3 minutes.
Bring it.
Huh?
I said bring it.
There we go. So the last 3 minutes before we do the last 2 minutes in promos for next week. November 25th is Thanksgiving Eve, the night where a lot of college kids go out. The night that is one of the biggest party nights for a lot of teenagers, 20-year-olds, some even 30-year-olds. But now, fellas, that is now the night that the NCAA has officially put that college basketball will resume. Ian Schraier, you work at a higher level. Or you know what? You are a sports information guy. November 25th is the day that basketball comes back. I want to know your thoughts on how this is all going to work and the scramble as an SID to put out a whole bunch of stuff.
Can I say that I'm very happy right now? I don't work in Division I, though. I mean, can I say that? That at least I can watch my team, Syracuse from my couch. And even though I wish, obviously, Adelphi was playing, I mean, we hope come January 1 at the Division II and Division III levels, we're all singing a different tune. But it's great that these conferences and the NCAA came together and set a framework for practices, set a framework for a possible even bubble, so to speak, for college basketball. I know in the Big East that has certainly been rumored, so I'm sure Joey can attest to that as a St. John's guy. Look, the NCAA desperately needs the college football playoff and the Division I basketball tournament to go off without a hitch. They lost so much money between the tournament, the men's and women's college World Series, a lot of money out the door. COVID is still a huge, huge concern, especially in sports like football and basketball. I mean, we alluded to it already with football, basketball again. If teams are going to be traveling from place to place, I mean, how exactly? I mean, what are you doing about temp checks? I mean, there's so many question marks. We still have, I mean, despite me doing this and being so excited for college basketball, there's so many question marks that have to be answered with regards to the college basketball season. I know we have to hurry it up because we're running out of time, but
you're okay. I'm trying to interrupt you. We actually just got clearance for an additional 5 minutes, so 8:05. So 8 minutes.
I do appreciate that. So I'm still not certain the fact that come by Thanksgiving we might be singing a different tune, but I'm glad that these teams are going to get back on the court, and there's a real good chance we could have a college basketball season. But let's see where we stand in 2 months from now, because we could be singing a whole other song at that point.
Rob DeLuca, your thoughts as a fan, from the fan standpoint?
Oh, I couldn't be more excited. I mean, let's be real. From a fan standpoint, this was the best news we could have heard, is that we actually have a start date in 2020, no less. And it sounds like it's going to happen. And we're going to likely get March Madness tournament. Whether it's with fans or not, that has to remain to be seen. One can only hope that they're allowed back in there, whether it's reduced capacity or everyone wears a mask, or there are no fans. But it seems like we're going to get our praised college basketball back. And my boys, the St. John's Red Storm, going to go dancing into the night, into the top 54.
I don't know what the two of you are smoking. I really, when it comes to,
you gotta believe it. It's real.
I don't know what's
real. Far from real. It is far from real.
Anything you just mentioned with that team, to be honest with you.
Oh boy, it is far from real, Rob DeLuca.
No, it isn't. This is a 20-win basketball team.
Unless they're putting 100 teams in the tournament, which I know schools have actually suggested, they're not.
The ACC suggested the whole Division I make it, the whole thing. Oh, I can't wait for Marist, my alma mater, Marist College, to play against Youngstown State.
And I'm sure PMAC would be thrilled about St. Francis in the tournament too.
Oh, for sure. Hey, listen, but you know what? I could tell you one thing is that St. Francis College and head coach Glenn Breaka have never made the NCAA tournament in its existence, and they are the oldest team in NCAA or in New York City. They are the oldest team, here. So, and they haven't made it yet. So that would be one heck of a participation trophy for my boys at St. Francis to I guess earn, we can call it, but.
Can I just drop one more point before we wrap up? It's just talking from the athletic administration side, talking from someone who, like yourself, Joey, that works in college athletics. I know Rob and myself included, are especially thrilled and happy about the potential return of college basketball. But we have to remember, and Nick and I discussed this ad nauseum a few weeks ago, that these are student athletes.
Right.
Okay? They're not professional athletes. It's not as if, you know, you've got a players association and owners coming to the table and agreeing on what to play.
Yeah.
There's a possible threat of exposure to COVID-19. The college basketball season is going to get postponed, canceled, whatever you want to call it. So in the end, student athlete health is paramount. I can't stress that enough. So like, that's why I'm saying we all need to use our best judgment and understand the fact that less than 2 months from now, we could be singing a totally different tune from what we're saying right now.
You really could.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And let's not forget, too, is that things have been looking okay on the COVID-19 front. But again, as we head into the winter months, things could.
Flu season is here. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. Flu season is here. That is for sure. So much to discuss, but this is something that, fellas, I want to end off with. I'll just show this little piece from Kevin Love. He was apparently very depressed. He actually was not obviously in the bubble, but he said this quote: "If it hadn't been for a couple of my closest friends, I don't know if I would be here today telling my story. I feel like I need to get that off my chest for the people out there who might be in a similar situation right now." I want to close off with the final 4 minutes with something that was said here by a fan, by the New York Islanders, where he believed that the demons took over, and he was countlessly saying that he was going to do it. He was going to commit suicide. He couldn't do it. He loved his Islanders family, but this pandemic was taking a humongous toll. There is a number that we want to give out here for the National Suicide Hotline, because it is something that no one wants to see, no one wants to hear. It is beyond awful to see the people that are going through these things, and similar to what Ian, Rob, and myself, and excuse me, and also Nick, Tyler, whoever is here, we all have been a part of it. Every single soul here has been going through something. None of us are perfect, but I know, again, Ian, for you and I, who both work in the college or in the athletic administration field, especially in college sports, we know what our student athletes could potentially be going through when they are told that they cannot work out. They can't be meeting up to play one-on-one basketball, or to be practicing, or to have team workouts, whatever the case may be. And for some, it is just a lot, and we want to give out the number. It's 1-800-273-8255. It's available 24 hours a day. National Suicide Prevention Hotline. Things, as we did say, for some have gotten worse to the point of no return. That one person that we were talking about in the Islanders family has still been tweeting. I'm assuming either he got help or maybe he's seen a different light, which would be obviously in a positive way. So our hope and prayers go out to Kevin Love, and also to every other human being out there that are going through this anxious time right now, where they believe that the demons have taken over, because just know they have not. And you can do your part in fight and fight to stay on this earth, because you have a place to be here. And every single soul on this earth here has a place for themselves here, wherever it may be. Whether if you think you can work at McDonald's or whatever the case is, you're still making a difference in this world, whatever it may be. But strive for greatness, as of course LeBron James has gone for. And have the Mamba mentality, as the great late Kobe Bryant has always said. Keep moving forward and think positively. So let's get back to the final promos, ladies and gentlemen. This is something that we are going to be giving away. It is a signed Matt Martin puck signed by Matt Martin himself. It is from the 2015-16 inaugural season at the Barclays Center. That will be going away in the next couple of days. Ladies and gentlemen, again, for instructions, please take a peek at our promotional graphic. Please follow us on Twitter at Observe Eastern. And also, please follow us on Instagram at The Eastern Observer, and also give us a shout out on Facebook. And do not forget as well, a part of the instructions here too is to ensure that you send us a picture of how you are celebrating not only Islanders hockey because they're done now, but celebrating how you are watching the playoffs here in 2020. It is a completely different way to do that here. Let's do a little bit of cross promotion here. The Scouts Minute for the New York Professional Scouts Association. We will be featuring Clarence James Johnard, also known as Bubber, a former Major League Baseball scout for the New York Mets, Baltimore Orioles, and the then Kansas City Athletics. He was the one that signed Ken Singleton many, many years ago. And also former New York Mets legend Ed Kranepool as well. So pretty cool stuff there. And also, we would like to give a couple of shout-outs to our interview series, which I'll be doing. This coming week, we will be speaking with TSN reporter for the Maple Leafs, Kristen Shilton. That will be our second woman on this interview series. She will be coming on here 8 p.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, September 23rd, this coming Wednesday, right here on the Eastern Observer, as well as someone who will actually be on here on Free Agent Frenzy Day, Nick Gismondi from the NBC Sports Chicago. He is the Chicago Blackhawks rinkside reporter. He will be with us Monday, October 5th, starting at 8 p.m. right here on the Eastern Observer. So a couple of good interviews that we will be getting to in the next couple of weeks. Ian, Rob DeLuca, cannot thank you both enough for being with us here. And any final thoughts from the two of you?
No, I just want to hope everybody's still out there is remaining safe and being careful out there. Obviously, summer's at a close and we're into the swing of fall. So obviously, again, stay safe. Obviously, like Rob mentioned, it's flu season. So let's all be careful out there. And hopefully we'll get back to normalcy sooner than later.
Amen to that.
Now, one more thing, because I am a terrible person. I forgot to give the shout out also to our good friend Al Carl, Tyler Adele, and John DeConti, John Smith, and Minutes to Bell Times Ryan Joy. Tuesday, September 22nd at 6 p.m. Episode number 20 will kick off right here on the Eastern Observer as well. Ladies and gentlemen, for all of us here at the Blackjack Media Group, Ian Schraier, Rob DeLuca, I'm Joey Jarzynka. We'll see you next time.